You open your eyes this morning, you reach for your phone, but the screen is black, not broken, just empty. No WhatsApp messages, no Instagram notifications, no YouTube videos loading. You walk to your kitchen, but there's no Coca-Cola in the fridge, no McDonald's down the street, no Starbucks on the corner, and it's not because they're closed for maintenance, it's because they don't exist in India anymore. Every single American company has been cut off from the Indian market forever. Now that might sound like pure fantasy, but here's the scary truth. We are living on the edge of a trade war that could make this nightmare real. And the spark? A crushing 60% tariff that America just imposed on Indian exports. This isn't just another trade disagreement. This is Washington sending a clear message. We don't like how India is playing the global game, and if you won't play by our rules, we'll make you pay. The U.S. has officially launched massive tariffs on Indian goods, textiles, pharmaceuticals, electronics, auto components. A tariff might sound like just another tax, but in reality, it's a weapon. It's Washington's way of saying, if you want to sell to us, you're going to bleed for it. But here's the twist. Behind the scenes, Washington has been sending signals to American tech companies like Apple, Google, and Facebook to start questioning their India investments. The message is deadly clear. If India won't align with us politically, maybe we shouldn't be so invested in them economically. That's massive because these aren't just companies. These are the digital lifelines that connect India's 1.4 billion people to the modern world. So what's driving this sudden shift? Why is America, a country that has courted India for decades as a strategic partner, suddenly hitting the brakes? The answer lies in global power shifts. For generations, the world was straightforward. The U.S. made the rules. If Washington approved, you got a green signal. If Washington disapproved, you face consequences. But India is now refusing to follow that old playbook. It's purchasing oil from Russia despite Western sanctions. It's building a manufacturing empire to challenge China without seeking anyone's approval. From Washington's viewpoint, that's threatening. From India's viewpoint, that's just common sense. But here's what nobody is discussing openly. This isn't really about tariffs. The real battle is about strategic independence. America has built its dominance on the idea that allies will follow its lead. India is demonstrating that it can be a partner without being a follower. Think about this carefully. If India can resist U.S. pressure today on trade, tomorrow it might resist pressure on technology policies, on military partnerships, on climate agreements, and once one major country does that successfully, others will follow. That's what Washington truly fears, the collapse of its ability to set global rules. So when you hear about a 60% tariff, don't think of it as just an economic punishment. Think of it as a warning shot in a much bigger fight over who gets to design the 21st century world order. India's economy isn't just another market. It's 1.4 billion people strong, the biggest collection of consumers and innovators on the planet, and it's accelerating fast. Take Apple. 10 years ago, India barely registered on their radar. Today, Tim Cook calls India Apple's fastest growing region. Remove India from Apple's growth story, and you eliminate a huge chunk of their future revenue. But it's not just about selling products. American companies depend on Indian talent to function. Walk into Silicon Valley and you'll notice Indian engineers everywhere. In some US companies, 45% of the technical workforce has Indian origins. They're not just programmers, they're team leaders, AI specialists, the foundation of innovation. Look at the top leadership. Sundar Pichai runs Google. Satya Nadella leads Microsoft. Arvind Krishna heads IBM, all Indian origin. The very people steering America's biggest tech companies were born and educated in India. So when Washington talks about pressuring India, it's not just threatening customers, it's threatening the talent pipeline that powers American tech superiority. That's like telling a car company it can't use engines anymore. India's influence touches everything. Remove Indian consumers and iPhone sales plummet. Netflix loses its fastest growing subscriber base. Coca-Cola and Pepsi lose millions of daily sales. The magnetic pull of India's market attracts every major brand because ignoring it means falling behind competitors. Here's the bigger picture. Most Western markets have reached saturation. Growth is minimal. But in India, entire industries are still in early phases. That means explosive growth rates. That means the difference between companies that dominate globally and those that get left behind. Now flip this scenario. What if India decides it's had enough and quietly starts rejecting American products? This wouldn't need an official government ban. All it takes is one viral hashtag like #boycott America and millions of Indian consumers could start switching brands overnight. Apple's nightmare begins. India represents Apple's fastest growing market. Over the past 5 years, Apple invested heavily in India, manufacturing iPhones locally to avoid import taxes. In 2023, Apple's India revenue exceeded $7 billion. Market analysts predict India could represent 25% of Apple's global growth over the next decade. Imagine losing that overnight. Billions erased from revenue, a massive hit to stock valuation. And here's the devastating part. Apple's supply chain now runs through India. If India blocks iPhone exports to global markets, Apple faces worldwide supply disruption. Google and Microsoft face talent crisis. Both giants rely massively on Indian engineers in America itself. Studies suggest 45% of Silicon Valley's tech workforce has Indian connections. They write the algorithms, design the systems, manage the cloud infrastructure. If India quietly encourages its tech talent to prioritize domestic companies, the impact would be catastrophic. Google Search, Microsoft Azure, YouTube all depend on thousands of highly trained Indian professionals. Losing even a portion would slow innovation and damage competitive advantage. Hollywood loses its gold mine. India is one of the fastest growing digital entertainment markets globally. Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime Video have invested billions creating content for India. While Western growth has stagnated, India's streaming market continues double-digit expansion. If India boycotts American streaming platforms, the losses would be enormous. Disney Plus Hotstar relies on cricket streaming for tens of millions of subscribers. Lose India and you lose hundreds of millions in subscriptions, plus billions in advertising revenue. Boeing gets crushed. Boeing has major aircraft contracts with Indian Airlines. India's aviation sector is exploding with millions of first-time flyers annually. If India pivots to Airbus in Europe or domestic aircraft production, Boeing could lose tens of billions in future contracts. Every Boeing deal supports thousands of American manufacturing jobs. A boycott means American manufacturing loses one of its fastest growing export markets. That's devastating for America's industrial economy. The domino effect is terrifying for Washington. When a country with a $4 trillion economy starts turning away, the world notices. If India's strategy succeeds, it shows others you don't need to follow Washington's playbook. That's the real nightmare for U.S. policymakers. If India strategically reduces economic ties, the consequences would penetrate American education, corporate leadership, defense contracts, and politics. Every year, over 320,000 Indian students enroll in U.S. universities, making India the largest source of international students. These students contribute over $15 billion annually through tuition and living costs. American universities depend heavily on this income. A sudden drop could bankrupt many institutions, especially smaller colleges that rely on international tuition to survive. Then there's the leadership pipeline. Sundar Pichai controls Google, Satya Nadella leads Microsoft. These leaders are products of India-America talent exchange. Fewer Indian engineers entering the pipeline would mean fewer future leaders with global perspectives. America's tech sector could lose its competitive edge against China. For defense, India has become a major buyer of American military equipment. Boeing deals with Indian airlines have totaled billions. If India shifts to European alternatives, America loses a crucial strategic partner in the Indo-Pacific. Finally, the Indian-American community, though small at 5 million people, is influential in key swing states. Any perceived hostility toward India often becomes a personal voting issue. Losing their support could make the difference in close elections. America needs India more than it publicly admits, and this dependency is intensifying. With over 1.4 billion people and a middle class projected to reach 600 million by 2030, India represents the last untapped mega market on Earth. Apple is investing billions because iPhone sales have plateaued in Western markets. Netflix's North American growth has nearly stopped, yet in India they still see massive potential. If America loses access due to political miscalculations, it loses the single greatest economic growth opportunity this century. American technological supremacy depends on Indian talent. Indian engineers, developers, and researchers are the backbone of American tech dominance. Google's AI advances, Microsoft's cloud growth, IBM's quantum computing all have Indian expertise behind them. If America loses India's cooperation, the global technology race shifts dramatically, and China becomes the primary beneficiary. In the Indo-Pacific, India is America's most valuable strategic piece. It's the only democratic superpower in Asia capable of balancing China's influence. If relations deteriorate and India moves closer to Russia or adopts neutrality, America would face China without its most valuable regional ally. Indian consumers are reshaping global corporate strategies. They're quality-conscious yet price-sensitive, forcing companies to innovate in product design and pricing. Amazon redesigned delivery systems for rural areas. Netflix created mobile-only subscriptions. Apple started manufacturing locally. These innovations often get implemented globally. If America underestimates India, it risks losing an innovation partner, geopolitical ally, and strategic consumer base. A hostile India would accelerate China's rise, redirect investment flows, and create leadership gaps in major American corporations. India's real value is how it's become integrated into America's economic, technological, and strategic success. That's something no tariff threat or political gamble can replace. You can impose taxes on products, but you cannot control a billion people's choices. That single statement captures the fundamental truth about U.S.-India relations in the 21st century. Tariffs, trade wars, and political confrontations might dominate news cycles, but beneath all the drama lies something much more significant: the power of one nation to influence the direction of the global economy, not through factories or exports, but through the collective decisions of its citizens. In a world becoming increasingly multipolar, the era when one superpower could dictate terms to everyone else is ending. Strategic patience and economic influence are replacing military force as the tools of power. And India, with its billion-plus population, rising middle class, and growing technological capabilities, has quietly mastered both. India's leverage isn't just about numbers. When analysts discuss India's economic importance, they often focus on market size, over 1.4 billion consumers. But the real advantage lies in the trajectory of that growth. This isn't a stagnant market, it's one that's accelerating rapidly. Every year, millions of Indians enter the middle class, increasing spending power and changing consumption patterns. The decisions they make, from the cars they buy to the phones they use to the brands they trust, shape corporate strategies in New York, Silicon Valley, and beyond. In other words, India isn't just participating in the global economy, it's becoming a trendsetter. Companies like Apple, Tesla, Google, and Amazon already understand this. That's why Apple's Tim Cook visits India frequently, why Tesla is negotiating manufacturing partnerships, and why Amazon is investing billions in Indian e-commerce. When political leaders in America talk about taxing Indian goods or reshoring manufacturing, they often forget it's not just about selling to India. It's about being accepted by India. Without that acceptance, corporate America's long-term growth projections start to flatten. The geopolitical chessboard, where India holds the key pieces, economics is only part of the equation. The other part is geopolitics. And here, India's position is irreplaceable. The Indo-Pacific has become the most strategically crucial region of the 21st century. China's rise has shifted the balance, and America has been actively building coalitions to counter it. Japan, Australia, South Korea, and the Philippines are important partners, but none match India's scale, geographic position, and potential military strength. Losing India in this equation doesn't just weaken America's position, it hands China a strategic victory without conflict. India understands this, and unlike during the Cold War, it refused Is to be anyone's junior partner. It plays the long game, balancing relationships with America, Russia, Europe, and even China when necessary. That's strategic patience. That's leverage. Cultural influence, the invisible multiplier. Hard power is visible. Military bases, aircraft carriers, trade deals. Soft power is invisible but often more influential. And here, India's impact is deeper than most Americans realize. Bollywood reaches global audiences. Indian food has become a cultural bridge in cities from London to Los Angeles. Yoga and meditation have become billion-dollar global industries. And in the digital age, Indian-origin tech leaders are shaping the platforms billions use daily. This soft power influences perceptions, builds goodwill, and creates networks of influence that can't be purchased through aid programs or military spending. When you alienate a nation with this much soft power, you're not just losing a market, you're losing a cultural multiplier that works in your favor in ways statistics can't capture. Strategic patience, the long game advantage. India's strength lies in its ability to think long-term. It doesn't rush into trade retaliation or public confrontations. Instead, it uses quiet economic adjustments, policy incentives, and market access decisions to make its point. If America pushes too hard with tariffs or restrictions, India won't respond immediately. But over months and years, American companies will notice a cooling effect in their India operations. Investments may slow, contracts may favor European, Russian, or East Asian alternatives, and that's when the real cost becomes apparent, not in Washington's political headlines, but in corporate earnings reports. Economies function like ecosystems. You can't remove one critical species and expect everything else to continue functioning normally. Remove the bees and flowers, stop blooming. Remove India from America's strategic and economic ecosystem and innovation slows. Market opportunities shrink and geopolitical balance shifts. Or to put it more directly, if you remove India from America's future, you remove the future from America's equation.